Hello, welcome to Recapping with Delora
and Ashley.
Please follow us on Instagram, Facebook, and Twitter at Recapping Podcast.
Also, comment, rate, and subscribe on your favorite podcast platform. We're on all the things.
We would love to hear your ratings of the movies and shows we review.
Email us your audio file to recappingpodcast@gmail.com and we will play it during the show.
Or DM us on Instagram and we will post and read it on air.
Thank you guys so much for listening.
Thank you. Hey, Ashley.
Hey, girl. Hey.
How are you doing?
You ask me this every week, and every week I'm like, I'm okay. I'm making it. But with everything going on in the world, I'm doing well. I'm doing well. I'm counting my blessings. How are you doing?
I'm okay. Well, personally, I'm fantastic. But it's crazy having such an awesome week that I've had and then seeing the shit show going on in this country, specifically around policing and their relationship with the Black community. I have to be honest with you, I haven't even really been watching the trial of Chauvin's trial. I've been updated, reading the news, but I can't watch it for my own peace. You know what I mean?
Agreed. Same. It's just too much. It's very traumatic. It's very triggering to sit and watch it unfold and for them to show the video multiple times. And I think also it's the trauma of not being very hopeful about the outcome that also makes me feel less inclined to want to watch, because if I get as invested as I would be just based on the circumstances, and this really does go in the direction that I'm fearing that it will, I don't know how I'm going to handle that. So I agree with you.
We've been disappointed so many times before.
Oh, it's beyond disappointment at this point. I mean, it's a new word. A new word needs to be invented for how we as Black people feel.
Well, I will say I have reached the numb state of things. And I hate to say it, but even with the latest shooting with Deontay Wright, this quote unquote accident is just too much. So, I mean, I don't know what else to do besides pray for the safety of my family and friends.
Absolutely.
But I just wanted to get your thoughts on that.
Yeah, I mean, I think we're on the same page. It's very traumatic. It's very triggering. I stay up to date on it as well in terms of watching the news and being informed, but I can't live in it. And I really have to give a lot of credit to the folks who do live in it and who do the work on a regular daily basis, because it's a lot to just deal with, and emotionally, mentally, with everything else that we've had to go through. I think if you don't possibly reach some level of numbness for your own well-being, Delora, I don't know how some people would make it through. So I'm on that same page.
Yeah. And the last thing I'm going to say to that is, especially for anyone who doesn't understand how the Black community feels about policing, we live in America. We are innocent until proven guilty. The amount of fear that is associated with, at this point, the terror of policing on the Black community.
Absolutely.
I don't fault anybody for wanting to run at this point, especially someone as young as a 20-year-old. And also have a misdemeanor, sure. Yeah. But that didn't mean that his life should have been taken. The whole point is due process. Let us live to get due process.
Exactly. And also, again, you're talking about a 20-year-old who had his family in the car. At least his girlfriend was in the car. He has no idea of what the situation is or circumstances as to why they're suddenly saying he's going to be arrested. You already have him as a young Black man fearing for his life based on everything else that has transpired. So one would imagine in that moment sheer terror, and then the outcome being exactly what he feared, right? So the whole thing being an accident, I just my mind can't even wrap around that. You're some 26-year veteran who was training other officers. I can't wrap my mind around it. I don't believe it. Yes. Flat out, I'll say that. And I'm glad she's charged with manslaughter. And I hope that she is prosecuted to the full extent of the law.
Thank you on that. On that point, we're going to go ahead and move into our hot topics this week. So in more somber news, rapper DMX has died at the age of 50. He died last Friday. He suffered a heart attack and then went into a coma after a drug overdose. We spoke about this last week. And at that point, he was still in the coma. And then that evening after we were done recording, then was some awful miscommunication on the internet stating that he was passed on, and he was not.
That was a roller coaster.
That was insane and so unnecessary. Like, just wait for an official word.
Right.
Ashley, what do you think about this? Hot topic.
RIP, obviously, the DMX. When we spoke about it last week, the hope was still there that he could pull through. But I think as reports came more and more about his organs had started to fail, there was supposedly no change in his brain function and activity. It seemed inevitable, and obviously still so sad, just given the fact that, again, he's a rap legend. He transcended music to become an actor, and I personally loved him in his acting roles. But beyond that, he was a father, he was a fiance, he was a brother, he was a son, he was all these things, right? And so it's just so sad to think that possibly addiction and these things that he had battled and dealt with ultimately led to his death, because as we talked about last week as well, so many of our legends have unfortunately passed away due to drug use, and it's just another one that, it's just heartbreaking.
Yes, I think the part that gets me the most for this particular death is the tragedy or the trauma that he lived through. Like, when you learn about it, his childhood being abandoned and being abused, is so heartbreaking. And, I'm glad as a society, we're at a place where we understand that drug addiction is a sickness, and he unfortunately is part of the generation that likes to throw people into jail, but what he needed was actually help.
Right. And got him so young. I was having a convo with my mom that he got hooked by somebody who he trusted at 14 by lacing his weed. Blunt. So, it's tragic.
Very tragic. Rest in peace. And sending positive thoughts and prayers to his family and friends.
Absolutely.
So sad. In other news, Prince Phillip has died at the age of 99. They haven't released the cause of death, but we know that he's been dealing with some type of infection and heart issues in recent months. And unfortunately, this death is overshadowed by the drama of Harry and Meghan. We know now that Harry is currently in the UK for the funeral that's going on Friday of this week. And Meghan has stayed home because she's pregnant. People had a lot to say about that. And it's like, well, she's a woman that's knocking on 40 who suffered a miscarriage last year, and she's late term of her pregnancy and a pandemic. So yes, she's not going to be there.
Right.
Because the stress alone of all the eyes on you. No, she didn't need to be there. I didn't have much to say about Prince Phillip, just because I know he was a colorful person when it came to people who weren't British and white. So I don't know. How did you take this news, Ashley?
I guess I'll say it's another that didn't surprise me, just because I knew that he had been struggling and obviously up in years and had been dealing with health issues. But I was curious about the fallout of it, to your point about how the Prince Harry situation is going to go. Because, I mean, that's still going to be awkward as hell, going back home and dealing with his family after everything that has happened. I mean, this is a forced reunion, right?
Yes.
It's not one that I think Harry wanted to have anytime soon. And obviously,
but
just
he had
how
a good relationship with his father, too. Or
with his grandfather.
Well. Yes.
Yeah. I mean, of course, he's going to go through and he's going to honor his grandfather and honor that life. And I was curious, too, as just to how the country was going to deal with this senior monarch who has been around for 99 years of life and has served for the majority of that by the Queen's side. I mean, just curious as to how they were going to do everything. So that's been interesting to witness. But otherwise, you know, rest in peace to Prince Phillip. You lived some years, sir. So good.
Long time.
Kudos to you. I hope I'm on your same path.
Yes. I have to say, the first thought when I heard about his death, obviously, like you mentioned, was not surprised, but I immediately thought about the Queen, just because I'm sure there's some science behind it, but I don't have any notes in front of me right now. But when couples are together for a very long time, sometimes when the first one goes, the second one is usually, follow.
Or not far after, yeah.
And she's in her 90s. They've been married for 70 something years, okay?
Yeah.
She started flirting with him, I'm going to be shady and say her cousin, at the age of 13 years old. She was 13, he was 18, okay? So he has been a part of her life, her whole life practically. So
for sure. And that's a great point, Delora, because that, as you said, has been the case I've seen with couples too. I mean, they talk about some couples who die mere minutes apart,
Yes.
But I think the one thing that the Queen has that a lot of those couplings don't have is the Queen still has such a sense of purpose and place. You know what I mean?
Excellent point.
Yes, exactly. Yes. Not to say that a lot of older people lose their sense of purpose, but I think when you're at that age, for a lot of people, you're retired, you're in your twilight years and you're living them out together. And the Queen still has a whole country that she is responsible for to whatever extent. So I hope that propels her and helps her with her grief. I mean, she went back to work 4 days after. So
she sure did.
She seems like a tough chick.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Okay. So speaking of royal family and the fallout of that Oprah interview, the talk has returned, this time without Sharon Osbourne. This week on Monday, I'm looking at USA Today. The talk returned after having a heated on-air discussion about racism, and it led to a month-long hiatus. On Monday's show, hosts Cheryl Underwood, Carrie Ann Inaba, Amanda, how you say her last name?
Klutz,
and Elaine Welteroth were back together to discuss the March 10th episode. And it was a whole episode about race and healing. They brought in justice advocate and inclusion Daniel Grant and trauma therapist and life coach Anita Phillips. Actually, I know you watched this episode. Did you like it? I want to also highlight that Cheryl finally got a chance to say her piece. She pretty much talked about how she didn't want to be presumed as an angry Black woman, and she thought that she was talking to a friend, but it just got disrespectful. You know what I mean? And then after that, she just pretty much had to hold her tongue.
Yeah.
What did you think about this comeback?
Yeah, I related so strongly to her too, where she said, I was fighting back tears, not because I was sad, but because I was getting angry, and I had to stifle my emotions. And I related to that heavily because in that moment
absolutely
of having to try to be in my opinion, the grown up of the conversation, because that conversation went so off the rails, one can totally understand Cheryl's feelings then and now to feel like, hey, that was traumatic. I'm still processing it. I don't have all the answers right now. I really loved a lot of what Elaine said, because I think that Elaine's really the one who spoke to the disrespect, and she's the one saying, you know, I want to clear up a lot of these rumors that have been out here, because as we know, Sharon Osbourne has not been silent. She's had an ET interview
very vocal
done. She's going to have an interview tomorrow on Real Time with Bill Maher. So, I mean, I think that I appreciated it, and I sent this to you over text, the fact that they had this opportunity to not only clear the air, but to set their side of events straight.
And didn't act like it didn't happen, right? You know, some shows come back and it's like, okay, today's topic.
They're like, we're going to hit the nail on the head immediately, and we're going to move past this. And I think it was probably helpful to bring in an outsider to facilitate the conversation, because I think it helped to put the rest of the set more at ease, to be able to have this person who is an expert in diversity and inclusion and all these things to help them process and move forward. I think they did a great job too of, you know, speaking to some things that even the audience could take away from. So overall, I appreciated the effort that they made and that the network made to allow this moment to unfold on air. But
you know, CBS has been under fire for their racial relations.
I mean, so many things have happened at CBS. I'm only giving them kudos for this thing, Delora. This is the moment I'm giving them a kudos for. But I will say I haven't watched any of the other episodes this week. So hopefully, you know, the chemistry is still there amongst the co-hosts, and they've been able to kind of ease, which it seemed like everybody else was still in a fairly good place in terms of not allowing what happened to disrupt their relationships.
And it wasn't that much lighter, because I did see that they were talking about the shootings in Minnesota, and even the lieutenant that got pulled over by the cops, who was in his uniform and just was completely disrespected by the cops.
Second Lieutenant Karen Nazio.
Thank you, Ashley. Gross. And honestly, that reminded me of the stories you would hear back in the day when Black soldiers would come home from war and couldn't get a home loan, you know, sit in the back of the bus. You know, it's just like, the people who are upset over Colin Kaepernick kneeling to highlight this issue of police brutality, and have nothing to say about how that cop treated that lieutenant. That's a double standard that I don't have time to break down. But it is gross.
Yeah, and then they tried to sweep it under the rug. They tried to get him to suppress the story so that it didn't become an issue. I mean, so then you guys know flat out that what you did was wrong. I mean, it's just above and beyond. Obviously. It's above and beyond any words that I could really say. But yeah, so that's really my thoughts on the talk. We'll see what happens. I'm not watching that Sharon Osbourne interview, by the way.
No, it's gonna piss me off. So no, I'm protecting my peace, because
I'm sure I'll see the sound bites, but it actually kind of annoys me that Bill is the one who's doing this interview. So I need to hear what his excuse is for that. But
he's such a middle person, like, both sides.
No. I'm not here for it, Bill.
Yeah. All right. In a speed round, former Bachelor Colton Underwood has come out. He had a sit-down interview with Robin Roberts on ABC's Good Morning America, and he had a very heartfelt interview. This is interesting, considering he was billed to be Bachelor's first virgin.
Yeah.
And what were your immediate thoughts on this one, Ashley?
Now, I know I saw in a lot of the comments, I wasn't shocked. I was shocked as hell, because
I was not. I was like, this makes sense.
Yeah, I was shocked as hell. Maybe it's because I didn't watch any of his season. Only things I know of Colton are the headlines. I knew about him and the shenanigans of him jumping over the gate. I knew about him and the restraining order with Cassie. Those are the things, and him being a virgin and all that. Those are the things I knew of him. I didn't know anything about the man. I had never even honestly seen an interview. So that's why it was shocking to me. Is like, hold on, where did this come from? But obviously it all makes sense now as to the fact that you were dealing with this battle internally, and all these other things have unfolded because of that. So good for you.
Yeah. So two things to that point, Ashley. So I kind of understand why this is a complete shock, considering he was a mainstay in this Bachelor
Nation
universe. Okay,
Yeah.
so he was on 2018's Bachelorette for Becca. And then he was on Bachelor in Paradise season 5. And then, you know, he was season 23's Bachelor in 2019. So he was a mainstay out here, quote unquote, looking for love, you know, with the ladies or whatnot. And, you know, again, he was having his internal struggle. One of the things that I thought was fascinating in his interview with Robin, he mentioned that when he was given the opportunity to be the Bachelor, he thought that was God's way of answering his prayers.
Right.
So he could, you know,
be
straight, you know, live the quote unquote American dream, you know, get married, have kids and the house and all those things. And so,
and he also mentioned growing up very religious. So it's yet another person who's saying, I struggled because I grew up in this very religious institution that made me feel like my life was a sin. I feel like him and Lil Nas are going to do a collabo at this moment in time.
I have an update on that. He has a Netflix show. They said that it's an unscripted episode show. That's all that Variety is currently disclosing or was able to get from numerous sources here. And so it should be interesting to see what this project is going to be. According to NBCnews.com, Netflix has declined to comment on the project, but
yeah, I read
I'm
that
sure
as well.
we'll see more of that. and finally, Ashley,
can I say one thing on that real quick? Is it just me, or sometimes do you feel like everything these days is monetized? Like,
girl,
I'm not saying that he's wrong to get his bag for this, but it's just like, does it take away any from the authenticity of this moment for you to immediately have a reality series for Netflix about you coming out, you think?
Well, honestly, what I was thinking was, it makes sense that he has this deal with Netflix because there's no way he's going back to the Bachelor's franchise to be like the first gay Bachelor after all the restraining order situations with his previous fiance.
Still need her response. You know, she's saying she's processing it right now.
She said she was blindsided.
We'll have an update once Cassie gives her official statement.
Yes. All right. And our final speed round topic, J-Lo and A-Rod have officially called off their engagement.
Yeah.
I'm looking at people.com here. In their statement, they pretty much said they realized they are better as friends and look forward to remaining so. They also highlight in this statement that they will continue to work together and support each other on their shared businesses and projects because they own some teams together. Okay.
Yeah, they have a lot of business endeavors.
Together because they were the hot couple, right? And so out of respect of their children, the only comment they have is they want to thank everyone for sending their kind words and support. Ashley, did you see this coming?
Yes, obviously. We had the rumors for a while now that, you know, there was trouble in the water and, you know, them saying, oh, nothing's confirmed. You had the whole scandal with another reality star and A-Rod supposedly. And so the writing was definitely on the wall, but I feel bad for the kids because, as we know, the kids seemed like they were super bonded and they had such a wonderful little blended family.
Absolutely.
But I wonder, Delora, if they're going to be one of those couples that breaks up formally, but then still has like some dynamic of relationship moving forward. Because, I mean, let's be honest, they're grown now, right? They're not.
J-Lo is in her 50s now, right?
We are grown.
And honestly, I'm glad that you say that because she actually has amazing relationships with her ex. She just had a whole profile, I believe, was it for InStyle? Ben Affleck spoke on about
so
her.
highly.
So highly of her. So much so that A-Rod wasn't even featured. They actually interviewed all types of people in her life, and A-Rod was not included, but Ben Affleck was.
Because everybody's still obsessed with that coupling,
Yes.
however many years later. But
Yes.
I just wonder, because I've known those couples, like those grown couples who they may get a divorce but they're still messing around or have some level of relationship, go on vacations together, whatever.
Yeah.
So I wonder if they're going to be one of those couples, because at this point, who's next for J-Lo? Who's next, baby? I don't know. I thought A-Rod was the one.
I thought A-Rod was the one too. She obviously is really good at being a part of a power couple. I mean,
very
Brad,
much so.
Mark Anthony,
Diddy.
And then A-Rod honestly was the match made in heaven.
Yes.
To me.
Yes.
Honestly, all of those power couple situations were like really ideal for her. So, especially from a, PR
professional,
perspective.
yeah.
Yes. So I don't know. I really, I don't
unless
see her,
she's like Selma Hayek and gets her a billionaire, babe.
I was just about to say that. Actually, I was going to say unless she gets an obscure billionaire, but I don't see her wanting to be with somebody old and rich. I think she likes someone who's in good shape, like she is.
Yes.
And someone who's going to let her shine. Period.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
She's
and I think he
freaking
kind of let her do that. Yeah. But A-Rod, I wouldn't be surprised if his ego got in the way, i.e. him talking to reality TV stars,
I could see him moving on, getting married to some, B-list, C-list celebrity out here. But I do wonder for J-Lo. Yeah, I do wonder for J-Lo. So, but I wish them both the absolute best, and I hope they're able to at least keep the kids close.
Oh, okay. Last thing, and then we're done with Hot Topics. She is filming with Lenny Kravitz right now.
Oh, is that?
Yes, because you remember
that's the next film in Mexico.
That's the film that you remember those pictures that came out with A-Rod flying down to the Dominican Republic.
Oh, it's the DR. Okay.
Yes, that is the film, and Lenny Kravitz in his current deliciousness is currently
go back to black, J-Lo. Go back to black, baby. Cause shit. Ooh, Lenny Kravitz.
Dangerous. Cause he had a picture of him shirtless with a coconut on his Instagram.
And when his daughter said, "Oh, so this is how people's dads cut coconuts." Yeah. Like Zoe, I feel you. Because your daddy is a snack, honey.
So I don't know. She might be too much for him because he seemed real chill, but Anyway,
you never know.
I will never forget that Rip Pants performance. However many.
We're done, y'all. We done.
We're done. All right, Ashley. Let's go into our recap.
Girl,
our
first throwback. We are taking it back into time to 1995. Are y'all ready out here? We are doing Waiting to X-hale, darling.
Shoo,
shoo-ba-doo. Hits. I can't handle Laura today, y'all. All right. So this film dropped in theaters on December 22nd, 1995, one day before my B-Day, because I was alive, and opened.
So was I. I was very young.
And opened at number 1 at the box office, raking in over $80 million. It is currently available to stream on Hulu, runtime a little over 2 hours. Here's a little bit of info, guys. So back in November, it was announced that the film will be reimagined as a series produced by Lee Daniels for ABC. Yes. It will be written by Attica Locke, who did When They See Us, and Timby Locke, who did Never Have I Ever, and directed by Anthony Hemingway, who did Genius, Aretha. Okay?
Yes.
In a recent interview, author Terry McMillan mentioned hoping to include some of the original cast in the new series and with cameos, which would be amazing, because I know they had always wanted to do the sequel, and then unfortunately Whitney passed and that was no longer feasible. So I definitely hope to see some cameos from my originals. But here's a quick summary for you guys of the film. Over the course of a year, 4 Black women deal with work, relationships, and family crises, all the while looking for the right man and relying on each other for support. As I mentioned, this is based on the novel by author Terry McMillan, director the Forrest Whitaker.
Love it. One of his most beloved films he directed.
Black excellence, okay? Yes. I have to talk about this soundtrack because me and Delora was talking about it before we hopped on the mic. Delora was just singing one of the most iconic. So this soundtrack was produced by Babyface. Fun fact, guys, it was the first all-female soundtrack, and that was intentional by Whitney and Babyface to do that based on the power of this all-female story and cast. It, at the time in 1997, it received 11 Grammy nominations and won Best R&B Song for Shoot, Shoot, Ooh, Badu. This soundtrack also won an American Music Award for Favorite Soundtrack and an NAACP Image Award for Outstanding Album.
Whitney is just simply the GOAT when it comes to soundtracks.
Isn't she, though? I said, I don't think there was a film she was featured on that didn't have a great soundtrack.
That didn't win all the awards.
Yes, and let's talk about some of these hits. You have Shoop, Shoop, X-hale. Yes. Why Does It Hurt So Bad, Girl? Yes. Let It Flow, Toni Braxton. It Hurts Like Hell, Aretha Franklin. Not Gonna Cry, Mary J. Blige. Mm-hmm. I mean, I could name them on and on.
Wait, why did I not know that Whitney and CeCe Winans had a duet?
Count on me? Are you kidding? Me and my brother.
I did not know that was CeCe. Girl. I thought that was only Whitney's song for whatever reason.
Me and my brother used to sing that in Talk Girl. Remember the Talk Girl and Talk Boy from Home Alone?
Yes.
That's how far back I go with this movie. We used to sing that duet together in my little pink Talk Girl back in the day because that was my song.
Love it.
It was a beautiful soundtrack, beautiful effort that Babyface and Whitney and all those incredible artists put in, and it's just the nostalgia factor amplified for me. So let's get into this amazing cast. So we have Whitney Houston as Savannah,
legend.
Angela Bassett as Bernadine,
legend.
Leela Rashawn as Robin,
iconic.
Loretta Devine as Gloria.
Wait, if she's not the Black mama persona. I mean, it's tied between her and the mama from Blackish.
Yeah, but Loretta Devine really stepped out of that typecast with that Being Mary Jane arc. I mean, I thought she should have won an Emmy for that performance. She was amazing.
Phenomenal.
She was amazing. Gregory Hines, may he rest in peace, as Marvin. Also rest in peace, obviously, to Whitney Houston. Michael Beach as John. Donald Faison early in his career as Tariq. Mm-hmm. Mykelti Williamson as the hilarious and ridiculous Troy. Leon Robinson as Russell, honey. And Wendell Pierce as Michael.
Can I say with Michael Branch, if he was not the fuckboy of the 90s.
Yes. John was the most hated character for me, probably in the film, but also let's talk about soul food. Let's talk about the fact that you unfortunately were definitely typecast in the role as the husband who ain't shit.
Period.
Reviews for this, Delora. Rotten Tomatoes. Critics, I'm not feeling y'all on this. 60%. Okay. Audience score, 79%. Google users, 87%. Delora, Can
you imagine the critics though at the time? Probably all white, all male.
Exactly. That's exactly what I was thinking. Y'all just don't understand. Yep. What was your grade for Waiting to Exhale on this throwback, Delora?
An A, of course.
Okay, give me some explanation.
So I remember this film. I mean, I don't even know how many times I've seen this film. You know, this is the type of film that came out. I saw it. Honestly, this is like my mom's heyday film because she was in her very early 30s when this movie came out. And, you know, these women are in their, late 20s, 30s. Mm-hmm. But yeah, remember watching it then, watching it on TV, whenever it came on TNT or whatnot. And then rewatching it for this recap, I'm just like, yo, there's so many things I did not pick up. Obviously, I remember the iconic, burn, bust the windows out his car situation, right?
Yes, Jasmine Sullivan.
But I didn't realize some of the really poor decision making of some of the women as well.
Yes.
It didn't really resonate with me, right, as a young kid, right?
I think that's one of the fun things that I always love about watching things at different points in time in your life, because of the relationship that you then form with them. Like, obviously this came out when we were children, right? So we loved it for the fact that we loved these women, that we loved Whitney Houston, we loved the soundtrack. We thought that, you know, the scenarios were probably hilarious to us at the time as kids, but we couldn't relate. We couldn't necessarily understand. And now as grown women, we about to get into this shit, y'all. It gets a little messy.
Real messy. And I have to say, the other scene that I also really remember is Loretta Devine and Gregory Hines' first interaction. That was very memorable for me.
That walk away. Is he watching me walk away? He is.
I love it. So, yes. What about you, Ashley?
My grade for this is also an A. There's no way I could give my movie Wait to Exhale anything but an A, okay? For the nostalgia, for the love of my girl, the Whitney Houston, for the continued relatability for me in my life. I enjoy this film just as much now as I ever have, because I've watched it multiple times too, but it's been a while since I really sat down and watched it without like interruption or distraction, you know? And I took some nuggets along the way, and it was such an era of Black excellence that I felt continues to deserve to be talked about and discussed. Iconic.
Absolutely.
Iconic. All right, guys, spoiler alert, we're about to get into the good. So Delora, let's start from the beginning, darling. This film spans the course of a year. We kick off on New Year's Eve, and this film is set amongst these four women in Phoenix, Arizona. So our four main characters, Savannah, Bernadine, Robin, my weakness is pretty boys with big sticks, okay? And Gloria. So let's discuss, by the way, Soleil, I didn't realize you stole that from this film, but okay. Each lady's life when we first meet them. Let's talk about it. So Savannah is played by Whitney Houston, TV producer, has moved from Denver to Phoenix, mentions the men there were dead. She has a disastrous blind date for New Year's Eve with Lionel, who had apparently a whole other date that came as well, named Denise. Cameo by your girl Kenya Moore.
Yeah, but she called him Michael. I was like, did he lie about his name?
Don't know who she was, don't know what the scenario was, but it was definitely absurd, right? Because it's like, hold on, how you just gonna be like, oh, this is my friend Denise? Like, sir, what do we do?
Exactly.
What are we talking about? I thought we were on a blind date here. It was just very like, okay, I'm over this. I'm gonna go home now. So she left. Bernadine, played by Angela Bassett, married with 2 children. Her husband John tells her, as she's preparing for another of his boring work events, that he is leaving her for another woman after 11 motherfucking years of marriage. White woman who keeps his books at work. He seems so heartless as he delivers that news to her, Delora, and she's fucking pissed.
Yes, and she she went to 0 to 60 real quick, and she stayed at 60 this entire film.
And I tell you, I'm a woman scorned, and I don't even know if I've ever actually been cheated on. So Angela Bassett scenes are definitely the ones that I remember the most vividly.
I did enjoy her in this film, like in the recent rewatch. I'm like, Angela is just, she knows how to act her ass off.
She does, especially for someone who this is not her lived experience. We know she's been with Courtney B. Vance forever and ever, right? So we move on to Robin, played by Leela Rashawn, works in marketing for an insurance company, single and mingling after getting out of a relationship with Russell, who she describes as a lying, sneaky, whorish Pisces, but that he was so fine, every woman in America wanted to be with him. Last but not least, Miss Gloria, played by Loretta Devine, is a hairstylist and single mom with a 17-year-old son, Tariq, who she's struggling to let go of. We'll see throughout the film. Tariq, unfortunately, does not have a good relationship with his father, who he says he only sees about once every 2 years, Delora. So let's move into the storyline. So we'll go straight to after that scene and the news of Bernie, which they call Bernadine throughout the films, husband John leaving her. We see the news is shared at the hair salon by Joseph to Gloria and Robin. Tea, I put in my notes, tea is so often spilled in real life in the hair salon, guys.
Always.
If you're not familiar.
Always.
But Bernie is going through it. She was out in a bathrobe. Joseph talks about having to take her home. We see her kind of going through the grieving process, which, as Delora already mentioned, culminates in that iconic and one of my favorite scenes where Sis goes off.
She sure does.
She grabs everything out of his closet, throws it into his
732.
Girl, disgusting. Throws everything into his BMW and sets that bitch on fire. So, Delora, you talk about the 732. Girl, my favorite line was when she was talking about him only wanting his kids to go to school with two other black children because of the improper influence. Guess what, John? You're the motherfucking improper influence. That is my line. I felt it in my soul. And then another part of the scene that I love is that we find out she's not just some stay-at-home mom and housewife. She has an MBA. She was an integral part of him starting his business, and she wanted to start her own catering business, but he was always asking her to wait.
Small for this man.
Girl, why don't you be the background to my foreground? Was something she said throughout this monologue. So, Delora, we have to talk about this scene. Tell me your feelings now as a grown woman watching this iconic bust the windows out this motherfucker's car scene.
It was cathartic. I mean, I have not lived this life, thankfully. However, I thought I mentioned that she went from 0 to 60 previously, but what I realized is she was going through the stages of grief, like we kind of talked about with WandaVision, right? Mm-hmm. You know, it was like the denial, and then there was the sadness and the depression. But that anger and rage, that was her sweet spot, obviously. She was not having it anywhere. And then the fact that she kept saying, for a white woman. That is a black woman's worst nightmare, okay? It's the worst nightmare. And so, yeah, it was, she played that role. I mean, it was a joy to watch, and it was well directed. Shout out to Forrest Whitaker.
Absolutely.
Especially when she walked away, that scene, I mean, perfection. And
I read that they originally wanted her to be Savannah, and she was like, when I read the script, Bernadine was the only character that I wanted to play because I was so interested in this person and in what she was going through, and I could not imagine anybody else playing this character because to your point, it was so cathartic.
But it's out of hurt. It was absolutely so much pain and hurt.
Absolutely. And to imagine you've been with this man for over a decade, you have 2 children together, he ups and tells you one night, I'm leaving you, and I'm leaving you for someone else, and it's this white woman to put the nail to like put a nail in the coffin. That's not even the worst thing. It's just that was a part of everything that had happened.
But what I will say is when he did tell her, it seemed like she wasn't surprised over the fact that he was cheating on her. Mm-hmm.
It's the bitch that keeps your books, isn't it?
Yeah, it was more so it's like, oh, so you're leaving me now. Mm-hmm. Okay, I've put up with so much to maintain your image and this lifestyle, and now you're just gonna leave me and your kids to the curb.
Exactly. It was, to your point, that scene was so cathartic. Like I said, I'm a woman scorned, and I've never even gone through it. I just feel the pain of all the women that I know that have. So I also love when the police come by and they talk about you can't set fire to anything but trash. And she's like, it is trash. Okay. Period. Felt in the look she was giving him, like, sir, I know you had to feel every one of them daggers that she looking at you like, why are you knocking on my door and what are you doing here?
And then putting things in context, you know, again, this is like our mom's generation. So we're still dealing with, you know, a working woman, you know what I mean? And things along those lines, like societally. So she probably did what she thought she was supposed to do, you know what I mean? Support her man. And the fact that he's the type that's so arrogant that thinks he probably did it all by himself.
Yeah, he does. He doesn't see her in the way that she sees herself in terms of contributing. We'll get to that too when she storms into his office, right? So we have to move on to Robin, who is trying to move on with coworker Michael. She doesn't have a physical attraction to him, but he seemed at first genuinely interested in wanting to make her happy. That sex scene, though, Delora, was embarrassing. She said, shit, I could have had a V8.
That was hilarious to me. I laughed out loud when she said that, but
absolutely.
I don't think anybody had a really great sex scene without any type of, apprehension or anything like that in this film, now that I think about it.
The good sex scenes came with people that they supposedly were in love with, right? It came with her, with Russell, and we'll get to Savannah with Kenneth, and all the other guys were definitely shown as being a little trash. But yeah, this scene was hilarious, and it was also very interesting because you get an insight into what Robin says she's looking for in a potential partner. And at this point, Michael seemed happy to give it to her, but doesn't last.
But I have to say, Robin, I realized, being the dreamer or the hopeless romantic, she was my least favorite character out of the quad here. Just because I feel like her head was so much in the clouds that she was just picking trash men. Yeah. And back to the sex scene, I'm just like, no foreplay, and for me, as a societal standard, it was upsetting because here's this bad and bougie chick right here,
super bad, super bad,
and then she is with this dude here. Yeah. And again, I'm not fat shaming or anything like that, because that doesn't mean whether or not he's a good lover or not. What I'm talking about is he didn't take the time to figure out what she wanted before he stuck it in her. You know what I mean?
Or did he? Because she was like, hold on, is it in? It was just a very... I was wondering if he got it in. Honestly, watching this last time, I was like, did he make it?
But I did also put condom propaganda, before he did do,
absolutely,
absolutely, and that was really huge in the 90s too. So
yes, I would imagine so. Still should be, but. Yeah, I think it was supposed to show that she was trying to be more open because Russell, this whole situation where she was trying to get over and him just being somebody who she found so physically attractive, but to your point was trash. And we'll also get to the point that I think Robin really had some trauma that she was dealing with at this time too, that came from her previous relationship. So Savannah, let's move on to Savannah. Seemingly, she was the longtime friend of Bernie's when she first came to town, right? Because we see her arrive at the house, and we had some great gems in their convo where she mentioned, Bernadine mentioned, I always thought if I gave him what he needed, he'd give me what I needed. Speaking of her marriage to John, she also said, it's amazing what can happen when you give a man control over your life. I have unbreak my heart, Delora.
Yeah.
It was just one of those moments to me where it was like, you really, this was long game for you. You put your trust into your husband. You put your life into your husband's hands, and unfortunately never had a plan B and never really found options outside of that. And now you're regretting it.
She lost herself. She lost herself in this man. Yeah. And it's like, at the end of the day, the only person you can put that much trust in is Jesus.
All right. Amen. Gloria, on the other hand, is she's kind of initially trying to get with Tariq's father, David, who, again, Tariq doesn't have a relationship with. He's not around much, but he comes to town to visit and comes to the conclusion that he is gay recently, because he mentioned that he had been bisexual for years. So, Gloria thought it was her weight that had maybe caused his lack of attraction, but that he had this, heart to heart with her, that this was the case. And in my mind, I guess I felt like, okay, I'm glad you're able to share your truth, but you're still a deadbeat daddy. You know what I mean? Because
exactly,
you're talking about,
to me, him being gay or bisexual did not justify his absence.
No, talking about I'll be going to the hotel. Tariq needs to make the first move, or else I'm gonna check out. And I'm like, that's what I'm gonna hold against you. Is good for you that you're coming into your own and you know what you want and need. I'm sure it's devastating to Gloria, but I would feel better about your character if you weren't seemingly this deadbeat dad asshole.
Yep.
So the $1 yard sale that Bernadine has at her house for her husband's things that she left over. I read the sign this last time I watched it. Love's hangover. Everything must go. Hilarious.
That was like the human embodiment of having zero fucks left.
Yeah. Laughing, telling the kids, oh, your dad told me he wanted me to get rid of all the rest of this stuff.
She was delusional at this point.
Yeah. She was in a state of like euphoria of like, I just have to do what I have to do.
She had antiquities out there.
That car.
In the sun
that car. Oh my gosh. I was like, can I get that car? Hold on. What part of Arizona y'all in? Damn. Yeah.
Really quick. I didn't know they were in Arizona growing up. Like, it didn't process. I just assumed it was like LA or something like that.
Yeah.
So when I watched it again for the recap, I'm like, oh, are there Black people in Phoenix?
I have never been to Arizona, but I'm gonna take your word for it.
Hey, Ahmad, I know his family is out there, so.
Very nice. Well, as we see, I mean, they're obviously a lot of them, or at least Bernie's character is in a more affluent part of town. I don't really know about the rest of them in terms of their living. So, yes. Yeah. Savannah gives that New Year's Eve date, Lionel or Michael, whatever his name is, we don't know, another shot after an apology, but realized, Laura, he had no job, girl. He smoked hella weed. He was a fake vegetarian. He kept her damn change. He used her toothbrush. And to your point, he was trash in bed. She said, now I'm gonna keep her at the damn zoo.
I know. And I was thinking, like, because one of the things that she said was she needed to get hers, you know what I mean?
To get some.
And he did have a body. I give him that. But he obviously, such a selfish lover. I just can't.
We hate those. Moral of the story, that first impression mattered. She should have run with that, right?
Where's Duke Hastings when you need him?
Where is the Duke? Where is the Duke? Or Jenny and Georgia, where's Hunter? Hunter was like, it's your birthday. It's about you tonight. Okay. Appreciate you. Appreciate you, sir. Okay. So one thing that I did not remember about this film is that the white woman that John leaves Bernie for was none other than the late Kelly Preston.
Yes, it was.
She smacked the dog shit out of her.
Ooh, it was absolutely amazing because it has nothing to do with her being white. It has everything to do with her being a hussy on the side.
The home wrecking whore.
Exactly.
She said, if you bring that whore bitch around my kids, it'll be the worst or like the biggest mistake you've ever made. Like, Angela, you played this part. She came to the office though, because John cleaned out their, I'm assuming, joint bank accounts. Told her to sell the house, girl. Offered her $300,000. Like, okay. All right, we'll see about that. Tariq did not take the news of his father being gay very well when Gloria accidentally spilled the beans after catching him with a young lady in a compromising position. This scene does not hold up with the language, which I'm not going to repeat.
Nope.
But this news didn't help the father-son dynamic, was the point of the scene, right? He already didn't feel like he had a good relationship with his father. Now here's this knowledge, and you know, it is what it is. Bernie cutting her hair scene. First of all, Angela Bassett looks amazing with short hair. So there's that. Yes. But you have cut your hair off, Delora. So I especially wanted your take on this scene of the feeling of I'm starting a new chapter, cut it all off, and Gloria being so upset.
I loved it. First of all, I loved it because my hairdresser didn't, ask me whether or not if I were sure or not, based off of her, like, girl, I hope you grow your hair after so many years or anything like that. It was more so, it's like, once it's off, it's off. Yeah. Are you going to be okay? Sure? So to see that conversation between Gloria and Bernie was really hilarious to me. And the fact that Bernie was like, if you're not going to do it, I'm gonna do it. Woo! And I was like, yo, this is amazing. But
she scared me with the aggression with those scissors though. I was like, that would have scared me if I was filming. I'm like, ooh, don't let me cut myself. She was aggressive.
It is, what's that saying? A woman who cuts her hair is ready to change the world because she got time. She got time.
And again, Angela Bassett with short hair looks amazing.
Amazing.
So, come through. We finally get to see the foursome all together because it took a while for us to get them all out.
It took a while.
Yeah.
Oh, and one last thing about Bernie's look. You can tell that she was trying to conform in some way with her long straight hair and the contacts.
Yes.
It's like, she was playing a role. Yes. You can tell.
And it was trying to fit into upper white society, to be completely honest, because you know, that's a criticism she has of John, is that, you know, he's not black. It's that he does not want to seemingly want to be black.
Uncle Tom. Yes.
Yeah. Because that's what she said even at the first scene where he's leaving her. He was like, would it be better if she was black? She's like, it'd be better if you were black. Yep. So that's a tension in their dynamic for sure. But I'm glad you brought that up, Delora, because I agree. When we do finally see the foursome all together, Bernie's trying to get her groove back. But you know,
becomes a couple of years later.
Y'all knew what I was talking about, Stella. But the irony is that it's with somebody else's husband, Herbert. So in this scene, I'm feeling like, hold up, sis. Your husband just left you. Now you about to mess with somebody else's husband?
Pump the brakes, sis. Please.
Yeah.
Not a good look. Not a good look, Bernie.
I wasn't feeling it either. Robin sees Michael at that same club that same night, and we realize they're not together because we see a scene where she fired him basically after he questioned her at work because they worked together.
He should have known better. Now, I do believe she might have taken it a little bit too far, because to me, it wasn't the end of the world. But I do know what it's like to be undermined in front of like senior people, and it's like,
it's the way he did it.
You have to do it now, now.
It's the way he did it to me too. It was like, let's not pretend like we're not lovers. So if in a relationship at that point, so if nothing else, I feel like you need to treat me with a different level of respect, you know, both in the office and outside of the office. Not to say that, you know, he doesn't have a right to do his job, but I think it was just his approach more so than it was the fact that he had something to say. So crackhead Troy, though, is who she moves on with, Laura.
Was he a crackhead?
He was allegedly a crackhead for this.
Okay, I thought he was just a drunk. Okay.
No, because you even hear in phone calls with Savannah was talking about he was a crackhead and that he stole her wallet.
Her wallet,
girl. But she wasn't, we get to see she wasn't impressed with his friends because he takes her to a party. She wasn't impressed with his lifestyle. Side note, that white dress that she wore, iconic. Legendary. I need it now. Okay. I need somebody to make that for me. But it had only been 3 days and he's talking about wanting to take her to meet his mother at a barbecue. Delora, would this have impressed you? Would the panties have dropped for you off of that?
Never. That's why I'm like, girl, I don't care if his mama want to meet me after a date. It's like, we've only known each other for 3 days.
Yeah.
That is not, no. Again, it's like, Robin, who hurt you? Because
we're gonna get to that.
They're so low.
Yeah, we're unfortunately gonna get to that to give some
another
context.
gross man who didn't deserve her top tier. Her body so banging in this movie. Okay?
I mean, it was her. Her era. Remember, she was in Boomerang. I mean, this was her era.
Yes.
But yeah, she was a beautiful woman, successful woman, and unfortunately, I think again we're gonna get to the fact that she was hurt, and that unfortunately played a role in the type of men she chose. But to your point, this would not have impressed me either. It actually would have really, really turned me off because I would have been like, why would your mother want to meet me after 3 days? Like, that's scary. That scares me off. It does not it's not endearing, it's scary. Especially these days, people crazy. So we discover Savannah had previously been dealing with the married man herself, Delora, Kenneth. He has a good relationship with her mother, and her mother really encourages her to be with him. She says, every woman needs a man, Savannah, and you ain't no exception. I have in my notes, Jesus, take the wheel.
Her mom was too much for me.
It hurt my feelings because I think that it's almost that generational trauma situation.
Yep.
And your mother feeling like, well, I don't want you to end up like me, so you would rather I make some really bad decisions that harm me.
Bad decisions.
For the sake of having a partner or significant other. This man is
or
whole
trying
married.
to reason yourself out of, what your conscience or your intuition tells you.
Absolutely. Absolutely. That $300K that John was offering to Bernie Delora wasn't shit, because as Bernie explains to Gloria, he owns an apartment building. He owns 200 acres of farmland in California.
She said their mortgage was $5,000
$5,000 a month. And he owned a vineyard in Arizona.
Girl.
So this man is sitting on some coins.
And all of it is in his name.
All
she ain't
of
got
it.
nothing to her name.
All
that
of it.
was unacceptable to me. It's like, no, if I'm giving up my career, we're doing this together. I don't care if my name is on it and I didn't. Well, it doesn't matter when you're in a marriage, the money put up, because obviously I'm helping the household in, taking care of the kids, taking care of the house, things like that. You know what I mean? So,
but it just goes back to the idea of just blindly trusting your partner with everything when it comes to your finances. We've seen this play out terribly for so many women. And it saddens me, obviously, that she was another victim of that. But, well, let's keep moving, because she also admits she spent an evening with Herbert, much to Gloria's disapproval. So
again, to my disapproval too.
Mine
this
as well.
Just happened to you, sis.
Yeah. And I think she's thinking of it as like, well, now I'm single and I'm not trying to take somebody's husband, but that's no better, because you still broke that bond for someone else's marriage. And you're talking about he's coming around to the house, he's coming by, he done popped up in front of the kids, all this stuff. Like, you're complicating your own life and you're complicating his. So don't make it seem like it's not still messy, right?
Exactly.
The infamous Russell, played by Leon. Only man Robin says she's ever loved, comes back around, and Troy gets the boot in that leather outfit in the summertime, girl. Showed up 2 hours late.
I was just about to say, for someone who wanted to introduce you to their mama, you show up 2 hours late.
He's a drug addict. I think that's the main point of that.
And he was drunk in that scene, though, for sure.
Yeah.
Crazy.
He was under the influence, but it was an iconic scene, because you have the eat a fruit bowl tramp. I mean, you got some lines in there that people still quote. So it was humorous.
Throwing the freaking oranges.
Yes, that was where that came from. It was humorous. I mean, I take it more humorously than I do seriously. Troy was a comedic relief for me in the film. As trash of a person as he was still funny.
How did you find the humor? I mean, I get it, funny. But for me, it's just like, I'm just thinking like, oh, Robin, these men don't deserve you, sis.
Not at all. But someone who does find herself a good man is Gloria. So Gloria's new neighbor, a widower, Marvin, played by the late great Gregory Hines.
Legend.
He quickly turns into a love interest, Laura, as you mentioned on that very first encounter, right? Because she offers him such good food. She's like, oh, I'm just cooking a little something, some yams, some sweet potatoes, some chicken.
She said these were leftovers. Girl. I'm like, was Thanksgiving yesterday, ma'am? Like, I don't understand.
I couldn't tell if that man was wowed by the potential of her cooking skills or that body, because you talk about she called his eye immediately. But one question I had is, do people still talk to and introduce themselves to their new neighbors in 2021?
Girl, sometimes, but sometimes not.
Yeah, she sashayed right on across that street. What you know about these people? But it could have been supposed to be like, oh, he's a black man, so I don't know how many black people lived in her neighborhood. That sort of camaraderie could have been what it was supposed to show. Yes. But I just don't know if we have that same
from across the room.
Exactly. I just don't know if we have that same thing now, because it's hard to trust people. Again, people are crazy. So back to Bernadine. After losing the first battle round in her divorce proceedings, Bernie encounters a stranger at a bar, James, played by Wesley Snipes.
I was so excited. I put that in my notes. Oh, Wesley!
He was looking good in this role, too.
Real good.
Yeah,
I was like, I don't think he's ever looked better.
I agree. He's playing a civil rights attorney whose wife is dying of breast cancer. White.
Heavy.
We have to say white wife to be specific, since it's of note for the film and Bernie's situation, right? They end up spending a sexless evening together, bonding essentially over like their shared pain because they're both.
It was sexless, but extremely intimate.
Very, because it was about, them really bearing their souls about their grief over her divorce, his wife dying, these partners they thought they were going to have for the rest of their lives. But my question is, was this still inappropriate?
Absolutely. Because for me, watching this film, I'm thinking, what is up with Bernie and these married men at this point?
Yeah.
It's like, can she just swat him off? Like, seriously.
Well, she wasn't giving him the time of day at first, and then he kind of just wore her down.
Yeah, that's true.
I'm not trying it. I'm not trying you. And then they get in discussion, and he's also, this is a vulnerable moment. It's a vulnerable time. She even mentioned to Gloria, Gloria, I'm not like you. I need someone to hold me, so I
don't know if that's a compliment.
I don't think it was a compliment in Gloria's eyes, maybe, but I think Bernie meant it as a compliment in that, like, you're stronger than I am. Like, I need something more than you do in that sense. But I think that, again, it's just we're catching her in this vulnerable moment, so I give her some grace in that. But I still thought it was inappropriate too. You're talking about how much you love your wife, this and that, and okay, y'all haven't had sex in a year. I get it, but your wife is dying.
You went to a stranger's hotel room, and y'all had to talk it out, like that.
This is something I don't want to make super gender based, but I also think it's a difference between men and women, because I feel like a woman would not cheat on her husband just because he's dying of cancer. I think she would stick it out until the very end, until he's gone, and then grieve, and then eventually move on. You know what I mean? It's just,
yes,
I think it's
I understand completely.
Yeah, a bit.
Yes.
Savannah, moving on back to Savannah, rekindles her affair with Kenneth when he comes to town, amidst his claims of basically only marrying his wife because she was 5 months pregnant with their daughter. He says, "You are the only woman that I have ever loved, and I still love you, Savannah." I put in my notes, is this the game? Because all these married men are claiming that they are happy to leave their wives for the members of our crew.
Exactly. For me, it was too much. It was like, why are all these unavailable men in these pictures? You know what I mean? Like, Robin, Savannah, and Bernie. It's like, goodness gracious.
Gloria had the good in her situation, which we see progressing nicely, because we even see Marvin start to bond with Tariq. For Gloria's birthday, that saxophone solo to start the happy birthday song, gorgeous. Oh my gosh. This scene is probably one of my favorites in the entire film. That talking ish, drinking and eating with your girls. Those are some of the best moments. Delora, as a part of this scene, would you have been Gloria snatching the phone out of Bernie's hands and reasoning with her when she's trying to call John and John's mistress? Or would you have been Robin backing her up as she's trying to go off?
I'm absolutely Gloria.
I would agree. You're Gloria.
I have always been the rational friend who's straight and narrow. Like, I don't do illegal activities, but I can talk you through, your situation.
I figured. So for me, I said it depends on what I'm drinking, because
is it dark?
Yes.
Is it light?
If it's tequila, all bets are off, baby. If it's tequila, I'm probably definitely gonna be Robin. But if it's a chill drink, because they were like drinking wine, I probably honestly would have been Savannah on the couch looking like, girl, get her. I don't know what she over here doing.
Exactly.
Somebody get her.
Exactly.
Yeah.
But then I was a little upset at Bernie though, because I was like, how did this evening become about you and your divorce? This is glorious.
It's the liquor,
birthday.
But it's the liquor. It's the liquor hitting that system. You could tell she was getting emotional. It was one of those. But agreed. She gets back to it though. She's like, "Why y'all turn off the music?" She was just having a little moment. Unfortunately, though, Marvin and Gloria end up falling out over Tariq and his desire to go to Spain, because he gets this amazing opportunity to play in an international orchestra and travel for a year. Marvin said, "Listen, let him go out and spread his wings." Gloria is like, "No, I don't want him to leave." Again, we see her having trouble letting go, because to her point later in the film, she says, "He's been the man in my life, not just my child, but he's been the man in my life." So it's hard for her to fathom letting him go.
But yeah, I always find that to be inappropriate, that dynamic of like a single mother and her son. It's like, he's not your man, you know what I mean?
He's not your husband, he's your son.
You need to let him live his life. And, you know, I know
and
that
live
could
his
be difficult.
best life. He was talented.
Exactly.
She does come around though, and she ends up apologizing to Marvin by the end of the film, which I was very happy about, because Marvin is our one good guy in terms of love interest. So, you know, I was rooting for them.
I'm glad that you said it that way. The one good guy. There were a lot of men in this movie. Most were trash. That's awful stats.
Well, it's a criticism of the film too, in the idea that it was kind of seen as male bashing at the time, or this or that. And I think it was addressed really nice by Michael Beach, who plays John, in saying, you know, he didn't mind that the male characters weren't fully developed, because the story is not in actuality about the men. It's about the women. It's about the relationships between these 4 women and the strength that you get from your female relationships. So
that's true.
Especially during some real hardships in your life, or times of pain.
These are based off of a novel. These characters are based off a novel, and you know, you need drama, right?
Exactly. Russell, going back to Robin's love life, claimed that he was going to go talk to his wife and leave her, but instead seems like he ends up sleeping with her, and then comes back to Robin's apartment. Tried to tell her to have her boyfriends not call after 11 p.m. WTF.
I have nothing, because it pisses me off, but I have nothing. Because
he's a trash bag. He's a fuckboy. He's a trash bag. But this is also where we start to move into the pain, Robin's pain, because Robin relays a story to Savannah of, first she tells it in the sense of, oh, this woman on this show, but it ends up being her story. She moved to town,
Sally,
followed
Jesse, and Oprah were the shows back in the day.
Oh my goodness, I used to love talk shows. But anyway, she talks about the fact that this woman moves to a town for a man. She ends up being 3 months pregnant. He says, oh, I can't leave my family. My kids will be hurt. She gets an abortion. He ends up dumping her. And she just basically says she never looked at men the same after that. And one guess who that was. I'm going to guess that was Russell, right? Because again, she mentions that being the only person she loves. So I think that when we talk about Robin, especially when we're meeting her at this point in time in her life, I think she's still dealing with that trauma of giving up this baby that she actually wanted, having this deadbeat who she followed, uprooted her life for.
Said that she didn't even tell a soul. She
didn't even tell her mama. Yeah. So I think she's still processing and grieving and going through that when we meet her in this story. So I like that they gave more context to Robin, because to your point, I think she could be seen as a little bit more of a shallow character who doesn't make good decisions. But when you realize that everybody carries a level of baggage, and that she just has to work through those things to hopefully, you know, move forward with her life, you know. At least we can hope. Bernie's one sexless night with Wesley Snipes turned into a potential love affair, Dolores. She received a love letter from him in the mail talking about, I fell in love with you after that one night.
I was like, okay, James.
What do you think came of this, if anything? Do you imagine that, because they never address it in the rest of the film, do you imagine that they eventually got together, that she just left this as a beautiful memory?
I think, you know, with this film being based off a novel, I find that the writing can be very beautiful. So in the letter, he said something to the fact of, you know, having that hope, knowing that there's something else out there for you. And I felt like that spoke to both James and Bernie at this moment, right?
Yeah.
Him dealing with his ailing wife, and her knowing that someone cares about her after, you know,
everything,
giving up everything for this man just for them to get divorced. And so I thought it was a beautiful tie-in where, as an audience member, there is that spark out in the distance. Not to say we're waiting for his wife to die, because that's tragic, but you know, who knows, after a couple of years or some, you know, or so, there may be something out there for her.
Yeah, I also loved it because, again, I don't condone the potentially messing with somebody while they're still married, all of that. But I think based on everything that Bernie has gone through, it does give you some hope that, like, she will continue to move forward and find happiness.
But not with married men.
Not with married men.
Man. And that's the thing. I'm like, sis, if you don't like it happened to you, do not do it to another sister.
Yeah.
Literally.
But I think it probably really helped with her. I mean, let's speak about self-esteem too, because your husband leaving you for another woman like that had to be crushing to one's sense of self and self-esteem. So
Excellent
if nothing else, I think that it helped to bring her back up a bit in her spirits on that. So Kenneth, moving back to Savannah, lied to Savannah's mom about filing for divorce because he was still telling Savannah, like, listen, we gonna have to wait. We have to wait till it's the right time. We have to wait a little bit longer. This inevitably was their final conversation, though, because Savannah, she went off. He tried to talk a really good game, but I think, and let me know your thoughts, was it the conversation with Robin that really changed her mindset about her situation with Kenneth and kind of took the blinders off?
Absolutely. I really do think Robin's confession was helpful with Savannah, because I think Savannah would have continued on with Kenneth and his shenanigans easily. And to me, when she told him that I'm not going to wait around just for you to do it to me with some other woman, I was like, that right there was her, she gets it now. She got it. You know what I mean? Because,
girl, that was a Genuine song. Like, what's so different? That was a Genuine song back in that time.
Yes.
That's the truth, though. Why would I believe that you wouldn't do to me what you're doing to your current wife? The way you speak about her, and then I catch you on the phone the next morning, you're still telling her you love her. Yes. You know what I mean? Like, you're a different level of trash as well. And you want to talk about men who have played trash characters. Again, this is the daddy from Love and Basketball. So another one who has played this
All-State person.
Guy. That's probably what a lot of kids today know him from, right? And I'm like, no, he's been trash for a long time.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. Her mother, though, not pleased. She called Savannah, going off on her, calling her insensitive. It got so heated. Savannah cussed at her mom, hung up on her mom. But I couldn't blame, obviously, you shouldn't disrespect your mother, but I couldn't blame Savannah for really standing her ground, because her mother was dead wrong.
So wrong. I think the other reason why I had an issue with her mother is she comes from that generation where they take the side of the men over the women. This is a horrible example, but like, if a woman is abused in any kind of way, the first question is, what did she do? What was
Enough.
she wearing?
Remember that from Enough?
Yes.
When she told his mother that he had been abusing her, what did you do? What did you say to him?
And it's like, you raised a fucking monster. What do you mean? Like, I don't understand. Like,
my God.
Men need to be accountable for their actions. And the mom was so busy trying to wife up her daughter to this man that looks great on paper, but who's emotionally unavailable or just completely, insensitive and gross to his current wife. It's like, why would you want your daughter signing up for that?
And then to Savannah's point, she even says, like, Mom, I have a great life. I have great friends. I have a career. You don't ask me about any of those things. You are determining my worth as your child by one thing. And that sucks. You're supposed to be my mother. You're supposed to be my support. You're supposed to love me unconditionally.
Exactly.
So that was upsetting.
I love that she saw that in herself, Savannah, though.
Yes, like, that she had that internal strength.
Multifaceted.
Yes.
And it is much more than my relationship status.
Come through, sis, because when she was like, I'm 33 and I still look good, I said, yes.
Yes. Exactly.
Bernie, ultimately in her divorce settlement, was awarded, girl, $1.5 million.
Come through.
Her house, a second house. 500,000 in stocks and bonds, and a Mercedes.
Yes, I said, so happy.
I said $300K my ass.
Exactly, and that's what she deserved. that sounded like half as far as I'm concerned. Like,
can I also say that I
here.
love that she had a Black female lawyer? Because again, when we talk about Black excellence, you guys are showing the Black excellence, not just in the film, but as a standard of society that, hey, we are all of these roles and that we excel at all of them. Yes, hire a Black female attorney because we can get that damn job done. Okay.
We'll get it done.
Exactly. Robin finally dumped Russell after realizing she was preggers with his child and planning to build a life for her and her child on her own. My thoughts in this moment are absolutely great for Robin. I'm happy for you to finally really let this man go, but I'm also thinking about that child because it is going to be sad for them to grow up without knowing their father ultimately. I'm sure at some point in time they're going to wonder about him. They're going to ask about him, whether or not he ever came around and tried to be a good man and a good father. We don't know, but it's still in that scene. I still had those thoughts. What were your thoughts?
I didn't think that deep about it. You always do a great job thinking about the children in the movies and shows we talk about. But what I did think was good for her for standing up for herself and her unborn child, because I feel like if she hadn't, he will be in and out of her life forever.
Or he would have encouraged her to get another abortion.
Exactly, which is something that she knew she didn't want. So, because even though Robin got on my nerves, you can tell that she has a sweet soul, you know what I mean?
Yes.
And, you know, again, I want her to win, of course. And so if this is her form of winning, I'm happy for her. And honestly, they did a great job with even showing him and where he stood when, after she closed the door, he was going to knock again and he realized he didn't want anything to do with it. So he walked away.
Please
so that
go.
said a lot about him. So
Yes. And I think because of reality, and we've talked about this a little bit in previous pod, about Leela and her husband and the affair with, you know, the ex-wife of Eddie Murphy, all of that also gives me a sweet, like a soft spot in my heart for Leela Rashawn, even in this film, because, you know, not that you know, art reflects life, but there's some art reflecting life a little bit in those dynamics. So I want her to be happy, not only this film, but Leela, I hope you're happy in real life too, sweetheart.
Absolutely.
So by film's end, we're at another New Year's Eve, and each of the ladies, we're seeing them all together now, and it seems they're all about to move on to a new chapter of their lives, and they're going to do it together. So I wrote down my moral of the story, Delora: keep your girlfriends close, because those relationships are what pull you through and keep you laughing along the way.
Exactly.
What are your final thoughts on this throwback?
I'm just so happy that we did it. I loved it at the end, that it was a celebration because they were able to stand in their truth. They were able to find their voice.
Yes.
And find love, whether the love is with a man in the terms Gloria's character, the love of an unborn child for Robin, the love of self for Savannah, and then for Bernie is just like, you know, finding love in her new freedom. You know, I just thought,
in her second chapter, her
second chapter, exactly, and her second win, because again, to your point earlier with Jane's letter, even if they do not connect, she knows that she's lovable, you know what I mean? And that's something that's important for a person to know that they are actually loved.
And it's, you know, because it goes back to our last recap, Tina, which I don't know if you guys have listened to yet, but Tina Turner struggled her whole life feeling unloved. So that is so valid and valuable and well said, Delora. Appreciate that.
Thank you.
I now have to go back and read this Terry McMillan book, because I realized that I have never read any of her books, and it's I don't know, I'll go back and watch an old movie, but I don't necessarily always go back and reread old books. So this is now on my list, Terry. I have to read this. So I'm excited. But Delora, that's all I have for our first throwback recap of Waiting to X-hale.
Thank you so much, Ashley. Excellent job. Thank you. All right, so it's now time for Hidden Gems.
Yep.
Would you like to go first?
Sure, I can go first. I just have 2 this week, and because I watched Waiting to Exhale on Hulu, I guess I've just been stuck in the Hulu universe because both of them are currently streaming on Hulu. The first is Then Came You, which is just this cute little rom-com I discovered. The screenplay girl is by Kathy Lee Gifford, who also stars in the film. And it's basically...
I remember when she was filming that.
Yeah, it's based around her real experience of losing her husband. In the film, her husband passes unexpectedly. And so she decides to travel abroad and starts with Scotland, I believe it is. Fun adventure she goes on. It also stars Craig Ferguson and Elizabeth Hurley. So it was just one of those quick binge rom-coms. And, I love a good rom-com. So I very much enjoyed it. And Craig Ferguson is funnier than I realized because I've never really watched like his show. So I didn't realize that I enjoy him very much. So you guys check that out. Then Came You. My second one on Hulu, Supervized. This is about retired superheroes who go to live in like a nursing home together essentially, and they come to realize something is amiss in this nursing home. The cast includes Louis Gossett Jr., Beau Bridges, and Tom Berenger. So it was another one that I like discovered, and I was like, this is interesting, and binged it and was like, that was goofy but cute. So it's another one that I just enjoyed that was lighthearted, and both, again, as I mentioned, on Hulu. So that one was Supervised. Delora, what are your hidden gems?
So I have one this week. It's a podcast. It's called Waiting to X, as in the letter, hale, with Winter Mitchell-Robaugh and Karen Thompson. So I used to listen to a pop culture podcast called Pop Rocket, and they had like 4 hosts, and they were a part of the hosting team, and then the show was canceled and they moved on to their own podcast, and they like to highlight Generation X. They call it the forgotten generation. So essentially it went from boomers to millennials, right? And so they talk a lot about things in pop culture from a Generation X perspective. And they have fun segments called like Nuo Lingo. So Winter has a Gen Z stepson, and so a lot of their lingo is like, I think we get some of it as millennials, but to Gen Xers, they're probably like, what exactly is going on?
They feel like they're the middle child.
Yes. But they have amazing pop culture insight. Winter is a former magazine person. Like, she worked for like the tabloids back in the day. Cool. So one of my favorite episodes, they talked about the Britney Spears documentary, and Winter gives her perspective of what it was like being, knowing all the ins and outs of what was going on in Britney Spears' life during that time, and what was reported and what wasn't. And then Karen Thompson is a professor at USC, and so she gives an academic perspective to pop culture. So I thought it was befitting to bring up this particular podcast because the name is an ode to this movie.
Waiting to Exhale. Very nice tie-in, girl. Very nice.
All right. So that's it for this week, Ashley.
Yay. Like I said, this was our 25th podcast, guys. So we're getting old. We're getting a little older. We're in the 20s, in the mid-20s. So we'll keep coming at you. If you guys, as always, have any feedback for us, let us know. Any suggestions, anything you're liking, give us your ratings, all of those good things. And as always, love you guys. Delora, do we want to talk about what we're doing next week, or is it another surprise?
It's another surprise.
All right. As always, guys, stick to our Instagram, mainly at Recapping Podcast, for what we're doing next.
Check out our stories.
See you later.
Bye.